You look lonely. I can fix that.
A Glendale woman found buried in a shallow grave in the desert after she went on a date with a man she had met online.
Detectives would later make a claim that is almost impossible to hear without stopping for a second. They believed the place where Arianna Bailey Jones was buried had already been chosen before she ever got into his car. If that's true, one question changes everything. Was this ever a first date, or was the decision already made long before she said yes? Most people worry about whether a first date will be awkward. Maybe the conversation won't flow. Maybe there won't be a second one. Arianna had every reason to think this night would be ordinary. She had no way of knowing investigators would later retrace every mile and uncover evidence that pointed in a completely different direction. Arianna was 21 years old. She worked as a hairstylist, dreamed of opening her own salon, and was raising her 2-year-old son. Life hadn't been easy. She spent much of her childhood moving through foster care before finally reconnecting with her biological mother as an adult. Even after everything she'd been through, the people closest to her described her as someone who still chose kindness. Like millions of people, she met someone online. A casual connection on Snapchat turned into conversations. Those conversations turned into plans. On July 5, 2026, she agreed to meet 24-year-old demonic Scott Glenn Rodolico for what looked like an ordinary first date. Nothing about that decision seemed unusual. At least, not yet. Here's the part that keeps this case from feeling like every other dating story. Police say digital evidence showed Rodolico's phone traveled to a remote stretch of desert near Lake Pleasant. Hours before, he picked Arianna up. Not after. Before. Why would anyone visit an isolated desert before meeting someone for dinner and a movie? That single detail became the thread detectives kept pulling. The more they pulled, the less this looked like a date that ended in tragedy, and the more it looked like something planned from the very beginning. If you ever meet someone through social media, I hope you'll stay with me until the end. This case leaves behind one safety lesson that could help you, or someone you care about, avoid a situation like this. Because if detectives are right, Arianna didn't lose her life because a date suddenly turned violent. The date itself may have been part of the plan. Welcome to True Crime Footprint, where we unveil the darkest mysteries and the most terrifying true crime tales. Kindly hit that like button, subscribe to this channel, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss any of our new stories. Your support keeps these stories alive. From the outside, nothing stood out. Security cameras captured Arianna and Demonic arriving at a Harkins movie theater in North Phoenix. They bought snacks, walked inside together, and spent time like countless other couples on a first date. If you had been there that night, you probably wouldn't have looked twice. That is what makes this case so unsettling. The most dangerous moments don't always announce themselves. After the movie, both of their phones traveled to Demonic's home in Northwest Phoenix, where they remained for about 30 minutes. No one knows exactly what was said inside. Detectives would later rely on digital evidence because there were no independent witnesses to fill in those missing moments. Soon afterward, both phones headed toward a remote area near Lake Pleasant. Not a restaurant, not a scenic overlook. A deserted stretch of desert in the early hours of the morning. For nearly 50 minutes, both devices remained there. No phone calls, no requests for help, no activity that could explain why two people on a first date had driven so far from the city. Then another piece of evidence appeared. A surveillance camera near Happy Valley Road captured Demonic's vehicle leaving the area. He was alone. Video showed him stopping briefly, holding his injured right hand against his chest before removing what appeared to be a bag or pillowcase from the trunk. A short time later, his phone returned home, but the night wasn't over. The next movement investigators found would raise even more questions, and once they saw where his phone went next, the timeline became impossible to ignore. 2 days passed. For Arianna's family, silence wasn't normal. She always stayed in touch, especially because her 2-year-old son depended on her. Friends knew something was wrong almost immediately. Her mother refused to believe Arianna had simply disappeared without telling anyone. When officers checked her apartment, they found details that painted a troubling picture. Her cell phone and keys were still inside. Her dog had been left locked in a kennel for days without proper care. The front door showed signs of damage. Nothing suggested someone had packed a bag and decided to leave. While her family searched every possible lead, detectives focused somewhere else. The phones, location records, surveillance cameras, and vehicle movements began lining up minute by minute. One discovery stood above the rest. After briefly returning home with deep cuts on his right hand, Domonic's phone traveled back to the same remote location near Lake Pleasant. This time, it stayed there for nearly 3 hours. If his earlier story was true, why go back? That question followed him into the interview room. His answer would change more than once, and every new version created another problem he couldn't explain.
She's a beautiful, beautiful girl. She had a beautiful soul.
21-year-old Arianna Jones was loved by many, especially her 2-year-old son.
She loved her son so much, and that's how I knew that something was wrong.
Sofia Sardinius tells me she last heard from her daughter on the 4th of July. When Jones stopped responding to text messages and phone calls, Sardinius went to her Glendale apartment, finding signs of forced entry.
A heaviness over my shoulder, and it was like I was so scared to go through her apartment because I felt that feeling of like she was dead. I don't know why. And she didn't deserve to be put in a grave like that. And she didn't deserve my baby didn't deserve any of that.
By the time detectives sat across from Domonic, they already knew one thing. His phone had created a timeline that was far more consistent than his memory. He first claimed that he and Arianna had been attacked in the desert by 2 masked men carrying guns and knives. According to him, they stabbed Arianna while he managed to escape. But that version immediately raised questions. Why didn't he call 911? Why didn't he stop at the nearest police station? Why did he drive home instead? His family later told investigators he arrived with deep cuts on his right hand and treated the injuries himself in the bathroom. Later, he reportedly told them the number of attackers wasn't 2 anymore. Now it was 5 or 6. The story kept changing. The digital evidence didn't. When detectives confronted him with records showing his phone returned to the burial site for nearly 3 more hours after he had already gone home, the room became quiet. He eventually admitted he hadn't told the truth. His explanation? He claimed he lied because he was worried detectives would discover he had violated his probation by possessing a cigar. That answer explained almost nothing. While investigators continued building their case, search teams followed the same digital trail that had exposed every contradiction. Before we reach what they found, here's the safety lesson I promised. If you're meeting someone you've only known online, always tell someone exactly where you're going. Share your live location, agree on a check-in time, and never ignore small warning signs just because you don't want to seem rude. A few seconds of caution can make a huge difference. What search teams uncovered days later would bring Arianna's family the answer they feared most.
Glendale police confirming this afternoon the body of a missing Glendale mom. 21-year-old Arianna Jones was found. Let's get straight to 12 News journalist Gabriella Becerra, who's live with what police revealed. Gabriella?
Well, Tram, really a heartbreaking update to this missing person case. Glendale police say that 21-year-old Arianna Jones was last known to be at this Harkins Theater just off of I-17 in Happy Valley Road on a date with a man she had met on social media. Police have identified that man as 24-year-old Dominic Rodolico, and they say he is now facing charges in connection to her death. Now, we know Arianna Jones was first reported missing by family after she suddenly stopped responding to text messages in the days that followed her disappearance. Glendale police say through cell phone data and video surveillance, they were able to figure out that Rodolico allegedly picked Jones up from her apartment the evening of July 5th. Their phones were tracked to the movie theater and then to a remote desert area north of here near Lake Pleasant. Cell phone data reportedly shows Rodolico visited that location 3 times that day. According to court records, detectives later found a shallow grave with human remains. A movie theater cup and some other items were also found in that area. Rodolico was taken into custody as he was allegedly cleaning his car. He reportedly told police the 2 of them were attacked and he was able to get away, but Jones was not. Police say he never reported an attack to them and that there was sufficient evidence that points to his involvement in her death.
We see the individuals meeting up with strangers because they've connected in some kind of social media platform or some other way. And, it's really important that people just be as careful as they possibly could be. They should also let family members know if they're meeting up with someone that they're not very familiar with. Again, we were really hopeful that we would be able to provide this family a better closure and reunite them with their loved ones, but unfortunately that wasn't the case.
On July 11th, search teams arrived near Lake Pleasant with cadaver dogs, guided by cell phone data that had narrowed the search area. It didn't take long. They found a shallow grave. Near the remains were items investigators recognized almost immediately, including 2 Harkins movie theater concession cups that helped connect the location to Arianna's final known movements. Not long afterward, detectives arrested Domonic at his home. According to police, he was cleaning the rear passenger area of his vehicle when officers arrived. They also observed healing cuts on his right hand, injuries investigators believed were consistent with the violent struggle they had been reconstructing. He was booked on charges including first-degree premeditated murder while already on felony probation. Prosecutors argued the evidence showed planning, attempts to destroy evidence, and an obvious risk of fleeing. The court ordered him held on a multi-million-dollar cash bond as the case moved toward trial. For Arianna's family, none of it could replace what was taken. A young mother, a daughter, a friend, someone who had survived a difficult childhood and was working toward a future she never got the chance to live. This case also left another reminder. Technology records far more than most people realize. Phones, surveillance cameras, and location data cannot tell us why someone makes a choice, but they can reveal where those choices lead. In this investigation, those records became the voice Arianna no longer had. Our deepest condolences go to Arianna Bailey Jones's family, friends, and especially her little son. May her memory never be forgotten. To everyone who made it to the end, thank you for watching, for your attention, and for joining us on this journey of reflection. Stay informed, stay vigilant, and above all, stay safe. See you on our next video.